an anuric child in the pediatric intensive care unit is on continuous venovenous hemodiafiltration, or CVV-HDF. The circuit uses regional citrate anticoagulation to prevent filter clotting. Over the last 12 hours, the patient has developed worsening metabolic alkalosis. Simultaneously, the laboratory reports a steadily rising total calcium to ionized calcium ratio. The primary team turns to you, the nephrology fellow, and asks a critical question. Is the filter failing, or is the liver failing? To answer correctly, you must understand the mechanics of extracorporeal clearance, the physiology of citrate metabolism, and the predictable complications of acute kidney replacement therapy. By the end of this episode, you will have the framework to interpret these derangements and manage the circuit safely. Continuous modalities provide superior hemodynamic stability for hypertensive patients, requiring vasoactive support compared to intermittent hemodialysis. The choice of initial continuous renal replacement therapy modality depends on your specific solute and fluid goals. Continuous venovenous hemodialysis, or CVV-HD, utilizes diffusion. Diffusion is driven by a concentration gradient across a semipermeable membrane. This mechanism efficiently clears small molecules like urea and potassium. In contrast, continuous venovenous hemofiltration, or CVVH, utilizes convection. Convection is driven by transmembrane pressure, physically dragging solutes along with water in a process known as solvent drag. This convective mechanism is highly efficient for clearing middle-sized molecules. The choice between CVVH, CVVHD, or a combination like CVVHDF does not significantly impact overall mortality in pediatric acute kidney injury. The key is matching the physics of the modality to the patient's primary metabolic derangement. Understanding the anatomy of a continuous renal replacement therapy circuit is essential for maximizing filter lifespan and clearance efficacy. In convective modalities like CVVH, replacement fluid must be administered to compensate for the massive ultrafiltration volume. This fluid can be delivered either pre-filter or post-filter. Pre-filter replacement fluid dilutes the blood before it enters the hemofilter. This reduces hemoconcentration within the filter, lowering the filtration fraction and significantly prolonging filter life. However, this dilution also decreases the overall solute clearance efficacy because the concentration of waste products in the filtered plasma is artificially lowered. Conversely, post-filter fluid administration maximizes solute clearance because the blood entering the filter remains entirely undiluted. The trade-off is a higher filtration fraction and a greater risk of early filter clotting. Balancing these factors is a daily practical challenge. Beyond the circuit plumbing, clearance depends heavily on the properties of the filter membrane itself. During convective therapies, a solute's ability to cross the hemofilter membrane is described mathematically by its sieving coefficient. The sieving coefficient is defined as the concentration of a solute in the ultrafiltrate divided by its concentration in the plasma. A sieving coefficient of 1.0 means the molecule enjoys completely free passage across the membrane, identical to water. A sieving coefficient of 0 means complete retention in the blood compartment. Understanding these filter characteristics is incredibly important when predicting the removal of medications, endogenous proteins, and toxins. While small molecules typically have a coefficient near 1.0, larger drugs or highly protein-bound medications may be completely retained. You must account for these dynamics when adjusting drug dosing. To keep the circuit running, regional citrate anticoagulation is widely utilized. This technique prevents circuit clotting without causing systemic anticoagulation in the patient. Citrate chelates ionize calcium within the extracorporeal circuit. Because calcium is required as a cofactor for multiple steps in the coagulation cascade, its removal effectively completely anticoagulates the blood inside the filter. Before the blood returns to the patient, calcium is infused to restore coagulation. However, the citrate itself also enters the patient's systemic circulation. For this strategy to be safe, the returned citrate must be rapidly metabolized. Under normal conditions, the liver, skeletal muscle, and renal cortex metabolize citrate into bicarbonate. This metabolic pathway is exactly why healthy patients on citrate anticoagulation might develop a mild metabolic alkalosis. It proves the liver is actively clearing the citrate load. When the liver or tissue perfusion fails, citrate metabolism halts, leading to citrate accumulation. Monitoring this requires close attention to calcium levels. Because citrate binds ionized calcium, accumulating citrate causes systemic ionized hypocalcemia despite a normal or high total body calcium. Therefore, a rising total calcium to ionized calcium ratio is the diagnostic hallmark of citrate accumulation. A ratio greater than 2.5 strongly suggests hepatic impairment, inadequate tissue perfusion, or inadequate circuit clearance. The liver cannot process the citrate load, so the chelated complex builds up in the blood. This explains the cold open. Worsening metabolic alkalosis initially suggested the liver was metabolizing citrate into bicarbonate. But the rising calcium ratio indicates metabolism has now failed, and intact citrate is accumulating. You are witnessing the transition into dangerous citrate toxicity. The extraordinary clearance capacity of a continuous circuit introduces the risk of unintended adverse effects, a concept termed dial trauma. When a highly efficient continuous renal replacement therapy circuit runs flawlessly, it does not discriminate between uremic toxins and vital nutrients. This continuous high-volume clearance frequently causes severe hyperphosphatemia, profound hyperkalemia, and significant amino acid depletion. Fellows must view the circuit not simply as a powerful waste removal system, but as an aggressive extraction machine that strips the blood of essential metabolic substrates. Preventing dial trauma requires vigilant, protocolized monitoring of electrolytes and minerals, alongside proactive, continuous intravenous repletion. Failing to recognize these predictable losses can leave a critically ill child with severe electrolyte derangements and severe nutritional deficits, completely undermining the potential benefits of the life-saving extracorporeal therapy. Returning to our anuric child on CVVHDF, the rising total to ionized calcium ratio indicates the liver is failing to metabolize the citrate load. The prior metabolic alkalosis reflected earlier successful metabolism, but the rising ratio proves that capacity is now overwhelmed. You must immediately adjust the citrate dose or switch anticoagulation strategies. Here are your board pearls. 1. CVVH utilizes convection to clear middle molecules, while CVVHD relies on diffusion for small solutes. 2. A sieving coefficient of 1.0 means completely free passage across the membrane. 3. Regional citrate anticoagulation works by chelating ionized calcium in the circuit. 4. A total to ionized calcium ratio over 2.5 indicates citrate accumulation and hepatic impairment. 5. Dial trauma refers to the dangerous, unintended clearance of vital nutrients like phosphorus and potassium. Next time, EP16 covers therapeutic plasma exchange and tandem therapies.